Today, we're going to talk about discipline to lead into a great discipling relationship with your kids.
Discipline is actually a very loving thing that we do for our children. The root word of discipline is to teach. We want to talk about a healthy way to discipline our children in a way that will position them toward God.
Remember, this is all in the context of building a relationship with them.
You decide, is this the standard you want to have in your home?
There are things that we can do as parents that set our children up to succeed, and then there's less discipline that's required.
You do not break a child's spirit by teaching, training, correction, and living to God's standards. That only strengthens the child.
Birth to 5.
This is probably your stage of parenting where the most discipline is going to happen. As we're disciplining, we're pointing them to where we want them to go.
Mean what you say and say what you mean. It takes discipline on our part to actually follow through. And if we're inconsistent, it's really not fair to the child.
6 to 10 range. We're teaching more responsibility, accountability.
Our goal is to reach the heart of our children.
Disciplining our children often requires consequences. And if we have the appropriate consequence, it can really get to the transformation behavior, not just the behavior modification.
The physical touch, the verbal praise, finding ways to elevate the virtue through those tools seem to help minimize other bad behavior.
That preteen teen time frame, more conversation based, giving them space to make decisions and determine outcomes.
After 8 years old and we continue in this high authority, what happens is hardened hearts. That diminishes your ability to influence.
I'm convinced today that because of the effort in those preteen and teenage years, that we have beautiful 20-year-olds today.
It is great to be back with you on the Life Parenting Podcast.
It is. Welcome. We're Rich and Julie Young, and we are excited to welcome back Don and Julie Keating.
Great to have you back, Don and Julie.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in the previous episode, we got to know them. So if you'd like to know some details about their family, you're going to have to skip back an episode.
And some great things about their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some really good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some stuff to build on. We're not going to do that in today's episode. But if you want to know that stuff, go back to the previous episode. Today, we're going to talk about discipline.
Yes.
Just how that can be beneficial to you as parents to lead into a great discipling relationship with your kids. They do go hand in hand.
Yes.
But we're going to spend today talking about the discipline side. And then the next episode, we're going to talk about the discipleship side.
Right. Which is funny because they really go hand in hand. They're so interwoven. So you're going to hear as we talk about discipline, we're going to be weaving in discipleship the whole time. But we're going to try to focus on the discipline and really get down to why we should discipline. Because I know there's some question. Do I really need to discipline my child, especially if you've had a bad experience growing up? Maybe the discipline that was inflicted on you bordered on abuse. And we want to talk about a healthy way to discipline our children in a way that will position them toward God, position them to learn the character of God and who He is, and so we can best disciple them.
Yeah. I was just thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if all we had to do was encourage our children?
That'd be great.
That's all we did on our parenting journey.
Wow.
I know Julie and I, we haven't done that 100% of the time. We'll get to you guys in a second. Maybe you have, but probably not. It's not something that we can just spend our time doing, nor should we probably, because there's way more to parenting than that. And I think about just the garden that we've had, our vegetable garden that we've had for so many years of our marriage, well over 2 decades.
To be clear, he had. You do 99% of the work. I'm very proud. I'm thankful.
Yeah. So he is a thing that Rich does. She is a thing that Julie does.
Yes.
And we is something that we both do.
Yeah.
So if we ever refer to that
French
on this podcast as we, that means it's a joint effort, right?
We parent our children.
We do parent our children.
He gardens.
Yes, he has gardened for many, many years. And I think about gardening and the fruit that I want to create in that garden, whether it's cucumbers, tomatoes, whatever the vegetable is. There are some things I have to do when I prepare for a garden, plant the garden, and then grow the garden. And I look at the preparation of the soil, the nutrients that I put into the soil, the work that I do to nourish the soil along the way with good water as, a discipling process as I'm going through that. And there are some things that I have to do along the way that, like weeding the garden and pulling it out. And that's pulling out some bad characters that shouldn't be in there, that are sucking away nutrients from the good plants. And I look at that as maybe disciplining a little bit. I'm pulling out the unwanted behavior that I have in my garden, which are those weeds that add no fruit. They're not going to grow fruit, and they're going to take energy away from the soil that I want to go towards that plant that is producing the fruit. So it's painful. The kids don't like going out there and pulling weeds. I mean, I don't even know if she likes pulling weeds in the garden.
Not particularly, but I enjoy the fruit. And so I realize no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but proves this is a harvest of cucumbers if you stick to it.
And you love the cream cheese, cucumber sandwiches in the summer. I mean, you love those. Or a bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwich.
Talking my love language.
Oh my! Now, bacon we don't grow in the garden.
No.
So that does not come out of the garden.
No pigs in the garden?
No, we haven't gotten there yet. I think the ARB would probably nix that, unfortunately.
Yeah, it'd be a stretch.
Yeah. But I tell you what, it's nothing like a fresh vegetable coming out of the garden in the spring, summer, or fall. It's just awesome.
Yum, yum.
Yes. And there's nothing like good fruit coming from our children.
Oh, it's amazing.
Even better.
It's absolutely amazing. So let's talk a little bit about discipline here and what that looks like. And maybe we can take this today on a journey from younger to older as we walk through this, so that we can help parents at different stages see what that discipline looks like. And remember, this is all in the context of building a relationship with them and helping in growing the relationship. But we want to give you some practical things that we've done, that Don and Julie have done along our journey that will help encourage you as you're in the thick of it. Because when you're in the thick of it, it's hard.
Right.
It's really, really hard. But there's so much fruit that comes from picking those bad weeds and getting them out.
Yeah. I do want to back up. Any of the Growing Families classes really goes into depth on so many of the principles that need to happen before we discipline. Our goal is not to just discipline our children right away, and that's how they learn. There's so much, like you said, nurturing. The Parenting from the Tree of Life is a 17-week series, and discipline comes in week 17.
Wow.
And that's on purpose.
And most of the people that come to the class,
they want to know.
Their number one issue is discipline. And we usually tell them,
just wait.
Just wait 4 months and you're going to be in great shape.
There's so many things that we can do as parents to shape and to train as part of the discipling process, where we can cut down. And you guys know that well, where we can cut way down on the amount of discipline we have to do, which is our goal. It's not fun to discipline our children. And I want to encourage, if anyone has not taken any of the Growing Families classes, to get into one. You can also listen to the podcast that was done a few weeks ago on first-time obedience.
That would be episode 15.
Okay.
Episode 15.
Because we're not going to go into depth here on first-time obedience and how to encourage it in our children. So what we're going to be talking about is assuming you're doing a lot of the proactive things, assuming that you are working on first-time obedience. But then sometimes our children, despite our best efforts, despite the plethora of wisdom that
despite how great you are as a mom,
throwing into them,
which you are,
they still choose to go a different way and need some correction in their lives to bring them back.
Well, and we're also going to put a link in the show notes to the website where people can register for an online class or get material.
Right.
That would help them with watch
online,
the videos,
order the books.
Yeah, we'll have all that in the show notes for you to link through. So talk about discipline first, just the basics of discipline, what that is, why it's important, and then we'll get into some practical examples for various age groups.
Yeah. Well, discipline is so important, and God's word has so many. I think the Proverbs are full of instruction to us. Do not, Proverbs 23:13 says, do not withhold discipline from a child. Proverbs 3 says, "My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. For the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights." And I love that biblical discipline gives rest and delight to the parent. Proverbs 29:17 says, "Discipline your son and he will give you rest. He will give you delight to your heart." So discipline is actually a very loving thing that we do for our children. We're going to talk about ways that we can do it in a loving and proper way. If we ourselves struggle with anger, all sorts of things, it can come out in a very negative way. It can be used as a weapon. And the whole goal, the root word of discipline is to teach, for our children to learn. And so if our discipline of our children is not with that desired outcome, it's more just, I want to make them pay for what they did, then we need to rethink our discipline.
Well, and when you're receiving discipline, are you in a mode of delight?
No.
I don't think so.
I'm mad.
Yeah. I don't think
Oftentimes
so.
mad at myself.
Well, you might be, but I think initially you start with being mad at the person that called you out, that's actually talking to you, because how could they be saying that about me? And then you might move to, oh, I can't believe I did that. And then you might move into, well, I'm quite thankful that they actually shared that with me, because I'm going to be a better person for that. But it doesn't always necessarily go in that order or that quick, does it?
No. I want to ask Don and Julie, have you guys always been on the same page about disciplining your kids? And if so, how did you get there?
I think early on, we were on the same page. I remember when I would come home from work, and I would ask Julie, what are your top 2 things you're working on today? Top 3. She may have 15 things that she was working on with the kids, and give me your top 2. And that would give me a heads up on what's happening in the home that particular moment in time, and would put us on the same page. And so we would look for opportunities to communicate, the 2 of us, in a way that would be beneficial to keeping the peace in the home and just being aligned with expectations and what we're trying to get done in that moment in time. And that's when the kids were young. So when we had 5 under the age of 8. So there's a lot of, I call it governing going on versus the disciplining. I preferred governing, how we're going to govern these little hearts. And there's a little more life-giving connotation necessarily. But so that's my take, babe. I don't know if you have a different take.
I just had this conversation with one of my children, and I think it's very important to have conversations even before you're married about what did discipline look like for you growing up, and what do you see discipline looking like for our children? And really, you really don't know until you have a child. But it's good to have those conversations to understand each other's background and maybe their bent, and then also and also their wiring factors into it as well. I actually, when we first got married, I actually was so pleased. It was one of the greatest surprises was to see how Don moved forward with discipline with our children. And I was very grateful for that. And I do think that clearly the Growing Families material explains in such a great way how to move forward with discipline in love, and even when it's hard. And so I was grateful for that.
So that in that question, and we encourage parents, even while they're going through the class, and after they've finished the class, that, okay, you decide, is this the standard you want to have in your home? Is this the direction you want to go? You're not going to hurt our feelings if you don't. We're not the ones that have to parent your children. You are the ones.
It's between them and the Lord, not them and the Keatings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so having this conversation, this is what Julie and I, understanding our backgrounds, coming from 2 different backgrounds, how we were raised, this material gave us the opportunity to decide, is this the standard? Is this what we want to do together? And really making an eyes wide open decision. And because, it may not be for everybody, but it was for us. And it did put us on the same page. So to answer your question, it put us on the same page. This is where we're going.
That's good. And I think making sure that it's not a bad cop, good cop. Very often we will see parents come in and one is a harsh disciplinarian and the other is just soft and sweet. I mean, the stereotype can be the husband is the harsh disciplinarian and the wife's not. Although I have definitely seen it the other way plenty of times. And that's not healthy. You don't want the child growing up, that's the parent who disciplines and that's the nice parent.
Yes. And I want to just add something because I think in the early years, I realized that kind of to Rich's point about the nurturing, putting good things into the soil. Same thing. There are things that we can do as parents that set our children up to succeed. And then there's less discipline that's required. And the interesting thing is it took discipline on my part. So the structure, the routines, anchoring my days with meal times, having a beginning, wake time and a set bedtime, things that maybe didn't come naturally for me in the way that I was raised were very important because then there's that consistency, that routine for our children. And when we get into routine, consistency, feeding them good meals, all of those things go into how our children behave. And so those are things that require discipline on my part.
Yes, that is so good. And episode 16 is on structure and routine.
Yes.
So I encourage if anyone hasn't listened to that, if you want to cut down on discipline.
But how it required some change on my end and some hard things on my end, but set the family up and the child up to behave in the best way possible. And so I felt like the things that I felt I wanted to own what I could own. And those were the things that I could own. And then the behavior of the child certainly needs to be molded and shaped. And I'm a part of that as well. But I felt like, for example, if they're exhausted and it's been a schedule because I haven't, I've been saying yes to too many things, or our meals have just kind of been a whatever. Those are things that affect our behavior. And so I remember feeling like I had a harder time disciplining with a good conscience with those things that I knew that were factoring into that.
True. Yes.
And so I wanted to make sure that I was doing the best to set my child up to succeed.
So good. So good. And that's why Tree of Life has 16 weeks because topics like that are covered in it. And it's so important.
We grew up in the era of Growing Kids God's Way. It wasn't called From the Tree of Life. And we handed out one chapter at a time of the 3-ring binder. And so parents could not jump ahead. And we could, you could say a little bit of control in there, a little bit of that. But to your point is that there's a foundation that needs to be laid here. And if it's laid properly, the discipline side, the correction side can fall into place maybe a bit more naturally. At least you'll have more confidence as a parent. And that's what we tried to instill in the parents is the confidence that you can do this.
Well, you'll probably, if there's a good foundation, you'll probably do less of it.
Yeah.
That's
Agreed.
one. And then two, when you do it, it will be more effective and you probably will have a better uptake on the result.
That's good, Rich.
If your foundation is not very good, it is going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
It's going to be a struggle because you won't have the underpinning that you need and you won't have the relationship with the kids to have discipline effectively. So
yeah, that's good. Well, another thing, if parents are struggling with, I don't want to discipline my child, and we've heard, I don't want to break their spirit. And that's addressed specifically in Growing Kids. And in a second here, I'm going to read an excerpt from the Growing Kids God's Way book. But I think when parents talk about breaking, I don't want to break my child's spirit. The way to break a child's spirit is to speak death over them. And we talk a lot about speaking life, which is episode 2 and 3.
Episode 2, yeah, we'll have a link to that in the notes, podcast
and
notes.
we talk about that every single episode. We probably sound like a broken record, but I hope parents understand it's because it is so important.
We're still working on it 20 years later after hearing the message every single week.
Lifelong.
We catch myself. I mean, you're doing better than I am, but catch myself having a thought or speaking a word of death, and it's like, wait a minute, that wasn't done as well as I could have done it. I could have done better at that.
Yeah. So speaking to the breaking a child's spirit, this is a direct quote from the Ezzos from Growing Kids God's Way. But you do not break a child's spirit by teaching, training, correction, and living to God's standard. That only strengthens the child. But you can rob a child of his dignity through improper parenting. A child is made in the image and likeness of God.
Yes.
When human dignity is attacked through improper training, the image of God is attacked. When death is spoken over a child, calling them stupid, dumb, you'll never amount to anything, or humiliating them, or screaming, or belittling them in front of others, then they are robbed of their dignity. These are the actions that break the spirit of a child because they attack their dignity as a human being.
That's so good.
So proper discipline is not breaking a child's spirit.
And I remember consciously thinking about the dignity of the child. And I thought that that was remarkable that a child could have dignity. I never crossed my mind, honestly. I thought that came with adulthood. You earned dignity. But the reality is there's so much going on in that little child's heart that the dignity plays into it. And so when it came time to discipline the child, I was very aware of that, tried to be very aware of it so that I could have the most positive impact to get the change in behavior that would be appropriate. And so I appreciate you reading that because it was very much part of our lexicon, if you will, in our home. In those governing years, if you will.
So what are some ways you preserve the dignity of your children throughout the year? We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of different ages and stages, but are there any guiding principles of how you discipline your children with a focus on preserving their dignity?
Well, there were times that stand out to me when we would remove the child and take them to a different room. So we did everything in the home.
So privately.
Mm-hmm. That was one real life example to respect. And I would even say that to them if they were old enough to understand. I would say, this is not appropriate to have this conversation in front of your siblings or family that may be present, but we do need to talk about it. We do need to go. So yeah, doing it privately in a way that would respect their dignity. If we were out in public, it would be that, Daddy and you and Daddy are going to have a conversation. We're going to have a conversation when we get home. So just a heads up that
those are always fun.
That's a fun car ride home for the kiddo.
Yeah. I thought that was a bad thing.
We're not going to do it in the grocery store aisle, kind of thing, or on the beach or whatever.
In
front of their friends.
We've had, our kids will have a whole gaggle of neighborhood kids over, and there's something that I'm like, oh, we need to work on that, but I'm not going to. It'd be humiliating.
Yes, and even how you remove them out of that environment, not drawing a lot of attention to it, just kind of quietly and subtly, if you can, pull them away from the crowd.
So not using their middle name.
Yeah, at the top of your voice. Exactly.
I always tell my kids, usually nothing good follows your middle name.
Your full name, exactly. That's right.
Unless you go by your middle name
as
your first name.
Yes. But our kids generally don't.
True.
They're like, oh, Mom used my middle name.
I don't know if you have anything
That's
to
fairly
that.
true.
Yes.
So why don't we get into talking about some of the various age groups and what discipline looks like in those age groups. So let's look at birth to 5.
Okay.
Let's look at that.
Which is the discipline stage of parenting. So this is probably your stage of parenting where the most discipline is going to happen or should happen. Now, some people may be listening to this for the first time and their child's 8 and they're like, oh, I missed it. No, you did not miss it. God redeems all things, and there is hope at any stage of parenting. But I think, for example, our granddaughter is 2 years old. And
yes, she is.
Not that she ever needs discipline.
She does not need any discipline whatsoever.
She's amazing. She has perfect parents.
So let's look at another child.
And
let's not talk about our 2-year-old
It's a
granddaughter.
different 2-year-old when our children were 2.
That's right.
So what we are doing as we're disciplining them is we're doing a form of discipling and pointing them to where we want them to go. And so I'm just going to role play an example here.
Role playing with me?
With myself, if that's okay.
Oh, I get to be
I know,
that's awesome.
Fun. You can kind of help you here.
That's kind of fun.
But I think when our children, if they had done something, maybe they stole a toy from a sibling, maybe they did not obey me, maybe they hit a sibling. And when they're 2 years old, we would often, in prep for toddler years, there was a whole list of ways to correct our children. There was a verbal correction, isolation, logical consequences, or discomfort. And so one thing we might do is timeouts are a form of isolation. And so we might have the child sit maybe in a corner of the room, maybe in a special chair. And so I would tell them, you're not to hit your brother. I want you to go sit in the chair. We actually called it taking a break in our family. I want you to go take a break. And they would know what to do. Now, at 2 years old, are they sitting in that chair thinking, oh, I know what I did wrong. I should not have done that. Oh, I am a sinner. I need to ask forgiveness. No, at 2.
Likely not.
But we are pointing. We are going to get there in the years to come. So we're beginning as we mean to go. And so we have them sit in that chair for a specified amount of time. Usually we would set a timer. When the
Both to remind the kid and us that the kid is in there. Has anyone ever forgotten a kid in timeout?
No, never.
Never. Keep going with the story.
I guess we should tell this truth. Yeah, maybe.
Well, Don has one, so I think Julie and Rich are fine. So, Don, we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Just don't ask Catherine.
We'll talk about it in a few minutes.
Or Henry. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Mom, did you forget about me? No. 10 more seconds. I'll be right
It's
there.
all part of the process, kids.
But when we were done with isolation, when the timer would go off, I would ask them, do you know why you had to sit? Now, maybe your 2-year-old isn't very verbal and they're not going to be able to answer that. And so we tell them why they had to sit. But we can ask the question, and as they get older, they can say, because I hit my brother. And we can say, that's right. We can point them to God's word. What does God say? We need to be kind. That's right. We need to be kind. And what do we need to do about it? Again, does a 2-year-old know all this? No. We are walking them through it every step of the way. And so then we would walk through the forgiveness process. And so let's say they didn't obey. I had asked them to do something and they didn't obey. I would have them repeat after me. So I would have them say, I want you to repeat after me. Mommy, I was wrong. I was wrong for not obeying you, Will you forgive me? Will you forgive me? And I would say yes. I would pray with them. I would hug them, and it's over. So
if you had $1 for every time you did that,
oh my
how
goodness,
much money would you have in an account?
A whole lot. Compound interest. I mean, yeah.
You'd be able to buy me a really nice birthday gift next week,
yes.
I think, with that, wouldn't you?
But
feeling good about that.
But this whole process is very time consuming. And I think that's where we can get stuck is I don't have time for that. But the more we put the time in, the sooner we are going to have fruit from that. And I do want the funny story of when Anna, do you remember what she did when I had her walk through that process?
Yes, I think I do.
We can role play that one.
But who do you want me to be here?
You can be Anna.
Okay, I'll do my best here.
Okay. I'd say, Anna, I want you to repeat after me. Mommy.
Okay, Mommy.
I was wrong.
You were wrong. No. What did she say? I was wrong?
She said I was wrong.
I was wrong.
For not obeying.
Will
you forgive me?
Will you forgive me?
Except instead of saying, will you forgive me? She said yes.
Oh,
That's so cute.
This is what we did not practice that before the podcast. That's what happens. You get the raw video, the raw feed.
Exactly. But I say, no. You're not forgiving me. You're supposed to ask me for forgiveness. But again, it's walking them through. It's showing them the process. And now Anna just turned 18. I know. It's hard to believe. But watching her when she does something that she knows was wrong, she doesn't have to repeat after us anymore, but she knows the process.
Beautiful. So you're setting, you just gave a good example there of setting clear boundaries as you work through the kids of no hitting, listening first time, teaching through consistency and routine, and using timeouts as a tool to do that. And it is. I mean, discipline is exhausting. You have to do it over and over and over again. And if you do it consistently, you're going to get fruit. If you don't do it consistently, you're not going to gain ground. It's going to be all over the place.
That's so true. I think one of the most important things as parents is mean what you say and say what you mean. And if you aren't going to follow through, don't say it.
Yes.
Don't say Don't say, come to mommy, or don't say, put your shoes on if you're not going to follow through. So I think that's so important. And that takes discipline on our part. Again, that we're talking about discipline. It takes discipline on our part to actually follow through with our children. And that's where we see the fruit, the consistency. And if we're inconsistent, it's really not fair to the child. They're like, what's the line?
What's the line today?
What's the line
'Cause it was
today? Oh,
different
does she mean
yesterday.
it? Oh, she didn't say it 3 times, so she must not mean it. All those things. What is the standard that we're raising our children to? And so it all starts with us, which is so important.
So you use the example of putting your shoes on. So we moved down south before we really got
there
into
you
our
go.
parenting, so we didn't have to put shoes
Didn't
on
have
our
to put
kids.
shoes on. There you go.
You should have
Goodness
moved down
gracious.
south a lot sooner because you lived up north and you had to
Put your
put shoes on your
flip-flops
kids.
on.
I'm
There
just
you go.
saying that would have solved all
Yeah.
kinds of problems.
So true.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
Julie, I wanted to. That's true. You should have. And who would have known going barefooted and grounding is the thing now?
Right,
so they were
right.
keep your shoes off.
That's right. We were trendsetters, Julie.
That's
We were
right. That's right.
trendsetters.
I wanted to mention though, Julie, for the parent that might want to go isolate their child, remove them to a chair, and the child isn't going to sit in a chair. And so, what would you say to that parent that was a beautiful scenario, but the child is going to kick and scream and run around? And so, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's where a lot of what the first time obedience is working
Mm-hmm.
on, because you have to be able to tell a child sit and that they are going to obey. Now, no, maybe the reason they hit their sibling is because they are so worked up.
Mm-hmm.
And so you telling them to go sit, maybe they are somewhat characterized by first time obedience, but they're so worked up. And so sometimes it's just separating. If they're a young child and they still have a crib or a playpen, sometimes it's just picking them up and putting them in the crib or playpen. Sometimes it's sitting next to them. Sometimes it's holding them
Yeah.
on your lap. It can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I remember the crib and the high chair, or not the high. Actually, you can discipline in a high chair because there's boundaries, and so it's helpful to eliminate the temptation of wanting to get up. So when they're being corrected for something, kind of having confidence that they're going to stay, because if they don't stay, now you have another issue as well, because you told them to go sit. And they're not sitting. So then I remember in my head distinctly remembering, okay, now I have 2 issues.
Exactly.
And so,
it's a good point.
So that was helpful. Like they knew what the clear boundaries were. When you're being corrected, this is what it looks like. And explaining it's sitting in the chair. It's not upside down. It's not, climbing everywhere. So, I mean, even in times of non-conflict, we've talked about that before. This is what it looks like when mommy says to go sit. Showing them exactly what it looks like. I think that's really helpful.
Yes.
And I wanted to also add, these are just some things that really stuck out to me when I was raising the little ones. Was I remember somebody telling me that discipline happens at home.
Yes.
And it made me think twice about being on the go all the time. Because you can still discipline when you're out, but so much more effective at home. So if you're disciplining and there's consistency and there's routine at home, that's going to spill over to when I'm at Target. And so, but if I'm at Target every day, and on the go every day, it's a little bit harder to have the foundation, mean what I say what I mean, following through, expectations of behavior. If I'm constantly on the go. And that really helped me, because if I know the why, and it's going to mean behavior change on my end, it's a little bit more helpful because it's disciplining mom too. Yeah. And so those were things that really stood out in those early years of disciplining.
Yeah. I remember someone telling me too, if you're going to Target or the grocery or whatever it is, and your child is characterized by throwing a fit, and you can't parent in public, you can't discipline while they're sitting in the cart at the grocery store. So this parent encouraged me, if my child was characterized by that, to take a practice run to Walmart or whatever it was, with the full intent, not even to buy anything. Maybe you can pretend to put something in your cart. And if the child throws the tantrum, disobeys, whatever it is, instead of the threatening, do you want us to go home right now? I'll take you home right now. You want to? And we never mean it. We become a threatening, repeating parent. If you take a practice run, you don't really need anything. You actually can go straight home.
It's very proactive as opposed to reactive.
Yeah.
And I still started in the non-perishables. Yeah. Do not start in the perishables.
Yeah.
That's the
You don't want to
the
fill your
teaching here.
cart up and make them put it
yeah,
all away
yeah.
either.
Start with a food truck out front.
I also think being in a hurry is another thing that really can counter discipline, because then you don't have the time or the margin,
Right.
or you're frustrated. You're thinking, we got to get out the door. I don't have time to deal with this, And so there were times that we were late because I felt like what we needed to deal with at home was more important.
More important.
And so you
That's
kind of
good.
have to weigh those things too, looking at the long-term goal.
For all the list people, put on your list, make time to discipline today.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't even have to cross
Yeah.
it off, but at least it's there.
There's a
Yes.
phrase that helped me in this
Yeah.
0 to 5 age, and that is that with children, actions precede beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And with adults, it's beliefs precede actions. And so the training part, this governing, this discipline piece of it, getting that action, your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old isn't necessarily buying in hook, line, sinker, the philosophy behind why you're trying to reach their heart, but helping them show what the action looks like eventually gets them to the belief part. At least that helped me with in that training phase or that discipling phase, 0 to 5, just getting that action that eventually will lead to the belief. And they'll own it at some point in time, getting to the devotion. I want to do it because it's the right thing to do versus just mom and dad want me to do it.
Yeah, so good discipline comes out of love. I mean, we love our children, so we want to discipline them. We also want to do it in a humble nature. It comes out of humility, obligation as parents to really take care of our children and do it well. We want to do it in a peaceful environment. So we've covered some of this for the 0 to 5 range. Let's move on to the 6 to 10 range.
Yeah.
Elementary school age kids, where we're teaching more responsibility, accountability. There might be some natural consequences coming in for actions and owning some of the mistakes. So let's talk about that age group for a few minutes.
Yeah. And I think as parents, our goal is to reach the heart of our children. We keep saying to position them towards God, position them in their walk in Christ. And in the 0 to 5 range, everything we're doing is laying this foundation. We're not necessarily getting their heart in the 0 to 5 range. I remember one parent coming to me and saying, what do I do? I told my 3-year-old it was nap time. I said, come upstairs, it's nap time. And the 3-year-old walked up the stairs to their room, whining the whole time, I don't want to take a nap. I don't want to take a nap. And the mom said, what do I do? And I said, you mean they obeyed? And she said, well, yeah, he came upstairs, but he whined the whole time. I said, he's 3. He obeyed you. That's awesome.
Yes,
That's what we're focusing. We're not going to get their heart and the attitude.
exactly.
We want to shape them. We want to encourage them to not whine. It's not that we're excusing it. But now if we had a 6, 7, 8, on up, and we said, I want you to clean up your room, to come to me, to do something, and they were whining, then we would address the attitude as well.
What is the yes, mommy, I'll obey all the way, right away, the happy way. And the happy way comes later.
Yes.
But that's what we're working on in the first time obedience is yes, mommy, I'll obey right away, all the way, the happy way.
So Don and Julie, what are some things you guys did to teach responsibility and accountability in that elementary school age time frame, 6 to 10 range? What are some things that you guys did that you saw fruit from?
One of the principles that I remember implementing was rules or rights versus privileges. So riding a bike is a privilege, and privileges can be taken away, and found that would be an effective tool in that age group trying to get to the heart, but also including the reason why, the why behind a lot of the consequences, or at least the punishments, the discipling, the disciplining that was happening. And privileges proved to be very effective, whether it's a bike, whether it's a book, whether it's just time in the backyard, free time in the backyard, whether it's to go see a friend. These privileges that we often can confuse with rights and therefore lose the effectiveness of removing those privileges. In this day and age, a lot of these children have phones, smartphones at that 6 to 10 age, which is interesting. That's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
And
We have one on that, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, I don't remember. We'll link that in the show notes.
but
Yeah.
if they do have it, it's a privilege.
Right.
It's not right, so it can be taken away. So I remember that the rights versus the privileges, and using privileges, particularly very few rights that they actually have, but privileges they had many.
Well, I love what you're talking about. You're talking about consequences. And so when we're looking at disciplining our children in the 6 to 12, it often requires consequences on our end. They did an action that requires us to intervene. And so there's natural consequences, and then there's consequences that we as parents imply. And oftentimes I think we think that things are rights and they're not privileges. And I think that was a great answer, Dawn, as far as, what we can remove. Because I think when we get the appropriate consequence, it's amazing how it takes care of the situation. I do have an example.
Mm-hmm.
This was, 5 children, young, and needing to get out the door. Or there was a season that we put them in school,
More traditional
short
school.
period of time.
Yeah.
Often, you have to make that decision in the morning. Is the child sick or not sick when they say they don't feel well? And so you're trying to, herd everybody out the door to go to school, and this child is saying they're sick. And, you have to use wisdom as a parent. And often, and it was just like for a temporary season that we put the kids in school, but this one child would often have a headache or sick, and, you have to make a decision. And it was like, okay, fine, you can stay home. And meanwhile, there's a party at home because there's so many young ones. And so we take Elizabeth to school, come home. Oops, I just gave it away of who it was. Come home.
Give it the age.
And all of a sudden, the child is fine. And so around 10 o'clock, they're bopping around the house. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. You were sick, so sick, couldn't go to school, but now we're home.
It's called conditional illness.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what that diagnosis is.
Exactly.
Works
So
every time.
one time
Rich
I...
Young MD.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go. I didn't even need chat for that. So, but one time I had a woman coming over because I had a commitment and she was going to be babysitting. And so I said, this child said that they were not feeling well. So they're going to stay in their bed the whole time I'm gone. And when I come home, I'll check on them. If they're too sick to go to school, they can stay in bed. That was kind of my rule at this point. And so sure enough, it took care of the situation. I think I was gone for 6 or 7 hours. I think they would say 7 or 8 hours. And
All
so,
day.
but sometimes it takes something extreme like that and we took care of it. And so I think as parents, it's like we have connection to the Holy Spirit. What is that? What is that consequence that would really get to their heart? And then you don't have to deal with it anymore. And so I look at that, and yes, that was extreme. Child services didn't come. It's going to be okay. No one died. Like it was extreme, but it was
fed them, you gave them
appropriate.
water.
And you know what? We never had to deal with that again. Now, I'm not saying that you need to leave for children 6 or 7. I think you understand the story. But I think that we as parents have access to consequences. And if we have the appropriate consequence, it can really get to the transformation behavior, not just the behavior modification.
So good.
Well, it just proves that good discipline will end.
Yes.
Good discipline will end. And
Right.
if we discipline in alignment with our child's maturity level and their spiritual state, it's going to help us end that discipline quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Where if we're not connected there, it's going to take longer and it may seem like it will never end. So I know one of the things that we've done over the years as kids move into that 6 to 10 age range is we've introduced chores to them.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what that's done for accountability, responsibility, and how that's helped not only improve their readiness, but also just opened up windows into where they're at.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great way to teach responsibility, to teach the team aspect of the family, because the responsibilities that we've given them or the chores that we've given them are ones that benefit the family. Yes, they have to make their own bed, but that's not what we're really talking about here. We're talking about things, helping to take the trash out, empty the dishwasher, sweep up after a meal.
clean up after a meal.
Right.
Yeah,
Things that benefit the family. We all contributed to the mess. We're all going to help clean up the mess. And obviously, there are times when a child forgets to do the chore. doesn't want to do it, so willfully does not do it. And those are times that we can teach into it, we can train, we can give a consequence often. Sometimes it means they have to do some extra, and that's never any fun. Then they kind of realize if I'd just done what I was supposed to do originally, I wouldn't have had to do the extra. I love how you guys tie in the privileges with the responsibilities. And we use that saying a lot. And I think it's also important as parents to proactively, in time when things are going well, point out the privilege that they had. And I'm so proud of you. You know, I even think we'll jump ahead to the teen years. We don't take it lightly that we allow a child to take the car keys to our car and drive somewhere. That is a huge privilege.
Yes.
And so when we allow a child to do that, we tell them, you've really proved responsible. And we'll name some areas in their lives that they have been responsible. And I know I can trust you. I'm just really proud of you. And that then who doesn't want to do an even better job when mom and dad are proud of me? They're giving me privileges because of how proud of me they are. Now, sometimes it is in the negative sense. And sometimes we do that. I think we have tried not to have our emphasis be there, but to let them know you haven't shown responsibility in getting your chores done. And now you're going to have to lose the privilege of screen time, going out with friends, you know, whatever we choose for the consequence to be.
That's a good point. And in that 6 to 10, we're starting to introduce ways to reinforce the principles that we're teaching. For example, elevating the virtue versus just suppressing the evil or the vice. And I would use verbal praise and physical touch. I mean, I can't tell you how many times take their little cheeks and just look them right now and say, I'm so proud of you. You did a great job. And that just that excitement and confirmation would well up inside them. They'd want to take better care of their things. I was very intentional, and Julie was too, with the word trust and what that looked like. And when they would demonstrate in that age group, when we are introducing chores and responsibilities, I would be very aware of how I use that word trust. And very seldom did I say it in a blanket statement. But to encourage them to elevate their virtue, I'd say, I trust you in this particular area. You're taking out the trash and you've been very diligent. You're characterized as doing it without being told, whatever it may be. But that also seemed the physical touch, the verbal praise, finding ways to elevate the virtue through those mechanisms, through those tools, seemed to help minimize other misbehavior, bad behavior, when growth areas. Yeah. And so in that 6 to 10, seem to be doing more of the life-giving encouragement, if you will, as the dad, particularly coming from dad. It's almost like they expect it from mom. But when dad notices, something resonates in their hearts that says, wow, this is awesome. I want to keep doing it.
Let's transition to that preteen teen time frame. So we're talking 11 on up. It's definitely going to be more conversation-based, setting expectations, discussing consequences, giving them space to make decisions and determine outcomes, and teaching self-discipline, respect for authority. What are some thoughts you have from that stage?
Well, I think there's the Life in the Middle Years class that the Growing Families curriculum has. And in that curriculum, there is a graph, and it's the authority to influence graph. And it kind of crosses, if you're on YouTube, you can see my hands, or we'll link to the graph. But what it shows in the younger years, we are parenting from a place of high authority. We are influencing them, but the majority of the way that we are parenting is through our authority, and the influence is a little bit lower. As the child ages, the graph starts to come together. And it's when they're in the middle years, I don't like to give an exact age, but we'll say somewhere in the 8 to 12 range, it's going to intersect. And our authority and our influence are about even. And then as we head off into the teen years, our influence is very high. We should be parenting without having to use our authority very much at all. We can if we need it. It's still there. We are still the authority. But our influence should be the primary source of our parenting.
Julie, that age 8 to 10 is truly a shift for parents. And I say that because I feel like if I had a do-over, that's what I would love to have a do-over with our first, because I don't think I realized how important it was to start parenting from influence as opposed to authority, especially when you have multiple children. And it's just kind of, this is what we're doing.
Lump everybody
kind
together.
of like a herd.
Yeah.
And I wish that I would have known about that earlier, because it felt very permissive when you're having conversations about things. And I remember the very first time that it really woke me up was Elizabeth was 10 years old, and we were a swim team family, and we all just went to swim team. And honestly, it was for our older ones. The other ones are getting disrupted in their nap and all of the things it entails. And I remember saying, it's time for swim team, and her for pushing back. And I thought, this is uncharacteristic of Elizabeth. Like there was just a pushback. It's summer, and this is what we were going to do. And I remember after this whole huge blow up, I will say, what I learned from it was having conversations. What I wish I would have done was, hey, summer's coming. This is what we're planning. This is what we're thinking. And so she could have had a voice. And I remember her saying, I don't want to swim. I want to swim for recreation. Feeling like and it wasn't just the swimming, it was many things. I think it just came out with the swimming, where she didn't feel like she had a voice. She didn't feel heard. She didn't feel like we were recognizing that she was maturing and growing. And so I think that exposed to us of, whoa, and we asked some questions to some people that had gone before us and realized, how important it is to have conversations. Now, was her decision going to determine whether we did swim team that year? She would have been a part of it.
She could have been a voice.
And so, and how important that was. And what happens is when we continue after 8 years old and we continue in this high authority, what happens is hardened hearts. Yeah. So we might get outward behavior or not. But you get a hardened heart. And so then that diminishes your ability to influence. And so I just remember that being something where I really consciously needed to shift. And so for parents that are in that age range, how important it is. And we're not their friends yet, but how important it is to kind of grow with our children too.
Well, in that age range, you're starting to mutually agree upon things with discipline. You're not just exerting your authority all the time. You're starting to have conversation with them and take some input from them on what good discipline looks like for them.
But it can be very
and involve them.
But it can be very easy to continue to walk in that authority because it's been working.
Right.
Totally.
Why would I change what's been working?
It's summer.
It's
this
default.
Is what it exactly. This is what it's going to look like, as opposed to having weigh in.
If you don't change what's working, it won't work.
It won't work anymore.
I'm just saying that from experience.
Exactly.
It is not going to work at some point.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that's what's important to remember. We want you use the word proactive. We want to be proactive parents looking ahead. And I think that's really helpful, where it's been so helpful to have friends who have the same goals and values in raising their children. And you can talk through these things. I know you and I will go on walks and we'll banter back and forth. And sometimes we can see things that the other person can't necessarily see.
Yes.
Because we're so deep into the issues and the history and what they said. And sometimes a wise friend who's walking the same path can get the 30,000 foot view and say, have you considered the memory?
Yes. And so much of it is in periods of non-conflict in this age too. So if there's an expectation of maybe what cleaning their room looks like, or being prepared for school, or all of anything that where you might feel like there's a rub, it's okay, we would always say, okay, we need to have a conversation about that. We need to have a conversation about that. And so we were going to circle back, not in that period of conflict, but I'm going to circle back, take a note, and then we're going to have a conversation with them and dialogue. And so much is asking questions also, getting their input. And because what I found in that age is that often my way isn't the only way. Okay. And so getting input. So here's the goal, being prepared, being on time for school. What does that look like to you? Let's back that up. Let's talk through it. I might think, well, all these things need to be done, and maybe they do, but in the timing It just requires a conversation.
Right.
So,
Over a bowl of ice cream.
yeah,
Of course.
It's amazing what you can get
Yeah.
done over a bowl of ice cream when a transition is taking place.
So, Don, good discipline incorporates forgiveness.
Mm.
So, if you've been wrong, if you've caused that, personally forgiving someone. So, talk about that in these teen years with your kids. Some of the things you learn.
Wow.
One thing you learned from that as a dad and going through that process.
That is a great area where I've learned a lot. And I kind of take after the Apostle Paul, where he called himself the chief repenter. And what I mean by that is the scripture talks about don't let the sun go down in your anger. And I use that as a motivator to get to the heart issue, what's going on between myself and the child, or myself and my wife. And it wasn't so much literally the sun going down, but I was determined to get to restoration. And oftentimes it required me to repent first. It may be the way I treated Julie in front of the kids. Maybe I'd said something, tongue in tone, what I said and how I said it. And I would repent to Julie in front of the kids to help model that. Now that may be more in the discipleship thing, but the repentance, forgiveness, and restoration process was very active in our home. And I took the responsibility. I'm going to lead by example in that area, and I'm going to own what I need to own and make things right. And that was a big phrase in our home, was making things right. How are you going to make this right?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes in those teenage years where they're taking on a lot, they may have a job, maybe they're driving, they're taking on these responsibilities. I took it upon myself to really help them in relationships of life. This is what it looks like when you mess up. Be quick to repent, own it, and let's get to restoration, or whatever that may look like. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, you never want to leave your child wondering if you want to leave them wondering that everything is right between the two of you. You never want to leave them in a position where they doubt that.
Mhm.
Yes, that's super, super critical. And that just feeds into discipline, renewing trust in your relationship.
Yes.
And it has to be renewed sometimes over and over again, because when you discipline, you are going to correct,
Mm-hmm.
or they're going to correct themselves as they hit those teen years. They're going to build in some self-discipline. And we've got a few kids that are harder on themselves than we are on them. And you know who your kids are that are that. Well, you need to help them work through how to discipline, how to receive discipline, and
Yes.
then move past it.
Yes.
How do you move past it and then move on to the next? Because if you can't move past it,
Yeah.
you're going to get stuck, and you're never going to be able
Exactly.
to get better.
It's a great example of your influence, your relationship influencing their behavior versus your authority, and modeling that, particularly as dads, as husbands, and what that looks like, to be present in the home so that your teenagers can see that. Our 5 children are in their 20s now, and I'm convinced today that because of the effort in those preteen and teenage years, that we have beautiful 20-year-olds today. Just patting ourselves on the back here, but it's made
It's
that
true.
effort.
You put in that work.
I don't know which is more demanding, the physical part, those early years of training where you're lifting and doing all this, or the emotional part in the teen years where you got to take the time at 10 o'clock at night.
I'm voting on the emotional.
Well, at 10 o'clock at night, having those conversations.
That's why the 10 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
put it over the top. Do you have any
Absolutely.
closing thoughts, Julie,
Yeah.
So
as we
sorry.
wind this down?
Well, just one more thing. It seems like in the teen years, when our child has done something, they have not made a wise choice, they have not followed our guiding principles, usually the stakes are higher. It wasn't just that they took a toy from their sibling. It's usually something a little bit bigger, which can invoke even stronger emotions from us. And I think that's where I've had to check myself, because I can be so angry, so emotionally invested in this unwise choice that my teen has made.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether there's a discipline, it's usually in the teen years, it's a loss of a privilege. If they have done something that does not show some sort of responsibility, they lose a privilege. But to be careful that my emotion doesn't get too caught up in it. And so that may be waiting a while. And Rich is really good about, you know what? I don't think right now is the time to go talk to her. What do you mean not right now? Like, I want to go take care of it right now.
Yeah.
And I see the wisdom in that, but it is hard. And to wait and to have a conversation. And because we have been talking to our teens, we have been discipling them, which is going to be our next episode. And our children have made a profession of faith. They have the Holy Spirit working in themselves.
Yes.
And so asking the Holy Spirit to speak to them before I even speak to them, then we can have a conversation. And very often we can talk about, you did this, you're going to lose this privilege. They're kind of like, yeah, I knew that was coming.
That's good.
It's not a surprise. There's not anger. If it was something that they wronged me, they will often proactively ask for forgiveness. And again, that didn't happen overnight. We talked about that 2-year-old repeating after me.
Yeah,
It's
so
the
true.
modeling. They saw it happening. So when our 16-year-old asked for forgiveness, it's been 16 years of working up to that
That
point.
foundation.
Yeah. So I want to encourage parents, if you're just starting now, it's going to take a little while. Model it, teach into it, come alongside them, champion them, and cheerlead them.
Well, what you just saw right there was Hebrews 12:11 played out in what you just said. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful later on. The later on you just shared, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and
So
of
good.
peace for those who have been trained by it. So Don and Julie, thank you for joining
Love
us on this
Appreciate you guys.
discipline
Thank you.
journey today. We're excited for our next episode that will be on discipleship. So we encourage you to tune in a couple of weeks from now, forward this episode to someone that may need some help with the discipline stage
yeah.
of their parenting.
And the growingfamilies.life website has lots of resources. Again, we keep referring back to the curriculum and the classes, so foundational. Encourage everyone listening to get into a class or find the videos on there. If there's not a class that you can join, watch the videos, go through the books, go through the material.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks for listening today. Thanks for joining us. We hope you have been encouraged, strengthened, and challenged by your role as a parent.
Yeah, and they can also connect with us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And any feedback or suggestions for podcast topics, they can email us at podcast@growingfamilies.life.
And they can subscribe
Yes.
to these podcasts so when they come out, they will be in your feed automatically. And we'd love for you, if you've enjoyed this, to leave a review on whatever platform you are using.
It helps other people find it. That's why. We're
It
not trying
does.
to be self-serving. We're trying for
Well,
other people to find this
Better
resource.
reviews do bring it up to the top of the feed. And we just want, our heart is for people to be encouraged, challenged, and strengthened in their parenting. And we want you to help other parents do that also. So until we're with you next time, thanks for joining us on the Life Parenting Podcast.